All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. This is our 39th Graph Guru webinar. We're very excited that you're here with us to learn about the new features in the most important product release of 2020, TigerGraph 3.0. How no-code analytics in TigerGraph 3.0 will help you connect the dots better. So today, let me introduce myself. My name is Emma Liu. I'm a product manager at TigerGraph, and my product focus area involves TigerGraph Cloud, application features in enterprise monitoring and containerization. I'm very passionate about big data, complex system design, and I've worked as a software engineer and product manager before in database and cloud computing area. Joining me today is the co-presenter, Duke Lei. Duke has been with TigerGraph for more than 3 years and is the lead engineer in application area in both GraphStudio and Admin Portal. He also has a specialty in full stack development, containers, and connectors. And Duke obtained his master's degree in Master Information System from Carnegie Mellon University. It has been a great pleasure working with Duke on bringing TigerGraph 3.0 application features to the world. Just some housekeeping items. So you're muted by default, but you can talk to us via chat in Zoom. And if you have questions, you can submit through the chat, address them at the end of the webinar. And the section is being recorded. After the webinar, we will provide the link to the recorded presentation. So I just want to mention that in our earlier practice, I had some internet issue. So if the internet drops, we may just record this this presentation and send you later. I'm very excited that TigerGraph was named by Gartner as the Gartner Cool Vendor. This is a very big distinction and honor for us, and it's really calling out the ground to all the hard work TigerGraph team has put into bringing 3.0 GA release to a wider audience. So why Graph today and why Graph now? So really, the connections between things and people are increasingly important. The relational analytics is the power to really drive your data insights to the next level. So Gartner ranks graph analytics to be the top 10 trend for business want to get more business value out of the data, but many times fail to do so because of data silos or data scale or data structure and complexity of using different tools. So here, Graph is the tool to help resolve these complex business logic questions in one platform. With TigerGraph 3.0, no-code feature will drive this transformation even faster and really empower many more people and organizations to use graph analytics without getting into the code level details. So here's the outline for today's webinar. We're going to introduce the version 3.0 and then go into the overview for all the application features and deep dive into the 3.0 no-code feature and also other improvements in GraphStudio and Admin Portal. So there are 3 main product focus for TigerGraph 3.0. In fact, this is for product development in general at TigerGraph. First, ease of use, which drives consumability, scale and performance, which making sure that the database works for the scale that meets today's data size demand, with performant computation, minimal data footprint, and real-time query performance. Better together, it's making sure TigerGraph integrates well with all the ecosystem tools and platforms. So here are some of the features. Is the application features, including the no-code migration from RDBMS, no-code visual query builder, and also easy to use GraphStudio new features, and also the web-based Admin Portal new features. The bottom section is the TigerGraph engine and GSQL language improvements, so, including the faster cluster deployment, convenient database import-export, performant user-defined indexing, as well as the schema-free GSQL querying. So we had a webinar, Graph Gurus 35, which go over the TigerGraph 3.0 overview, and there are more details in the engine and GSQL features in that webinar. Now, when you think about these feature areas and how component brings benefits in the different levels and to different personas, the bottom is the foundation for the database, which is in 3.0, we bring 10x improvement in cluster operation speed, which paves the foundation to accommodating to very large data scale. Then the top two are the application areas we're focusing on today, really bringing easier exploration of graph data for non-graph users, as well as enhancing developer and DBA developer productivity by providing the UI tools. Top two we're focusing on today. Before going into the details, just a quick high-level TigerGraph architecture. So you can talk to TigerGraph from outside, either using the GSQL language, and we also have a great UI, which is not just for visualization, but it's for the entire design workflow. So we've had GraphStudio since the very beginning. We're about to introduce some of these new no-code features, which will allow users to import data and develop graph schema and graph queries without writing any code. We also have the general purpose REST APIs to communicate for application building and embedded systems. And we can import data from a variety of platforms. We manage data, master data, persistent data. We can also stream, we can read from Spark and other databases. There is a graph storage engine where the data is stored with indexing and an ID lookup service. And there's also a graph processing engine which does parallel processing and also does the data snapshots, which is how we handle concurrency and asset transactions with multiple simultaneous transactions. The REST PP component is the manager that keeps everything coordinated. And all of these, there are various language and UI interfaces for TigerGraph. All right, let's take a look at the no-code features, which will enable graph analytics for everyone. Here's a list of the new TigerGraph 3.0 application features. First, the no-code graph analytics, migration from relational to graph, and also Visual Query Builder, which is a drag and drop tool to get information and query out of database. And the second part is the improvements in GraphStudio itself. We included the MultiGraph support. We also supported secondary index in sync with the 3.0 engine features. We added the GSQL interpret mode for the writing query sections. We also internationalization localization for UI platforms. And for Admin Portal, we added user management and also license management. Let's get into the no code. The first no code is really getting data from relational databases to TigerGraph, the migration, no code migration. So developers who are familiar with relational database can use this feature to auto-generate a graph schema, which will serve as the first draft for TigerGraph graph schema. It really simplifies part architects process, and also making sure that we provide the flexibility and agility to our users so that they can customize their graph model. Since it is click-through steps, it is very intuitive for users to use. The second part for no-code analytics is the no-code graph analytics with Visual Query Builder. And this really completes the data querying capability. So before TigerGraph 3.0, developers need to write in GSQL queries, Now, more business analysts, data scientists, using just drag and drop graph patterns. There's really no need to learn GSQL queries anymore. So if you have a question in mind, for example, I want to find all people who are friends of me and my manager, you can just translate this question into an executable graph pattern by drag and drop the icons and getting to the graph insights within a short time. So it really decreases the learning curve for new users to graph. Just an overview for this no-code data workflow. If you are a business analyst, the scientists don't want to use that line, you can use the no-code RDBMS to graph, obtain and get the auto-generated graph schema. Then in the next part, you can use the no-code visual query builder or just the regular GSQL queries to inquire information out of the database. Notice that the no-code visual query builder actually works for both the no-code RDBMS to graph, as well as the regular ETL data loader. So this is a universal visual query builder that getting database, and you can do the drag and drop the graph patterns and also have the auto-generated GSQL queries and having the RESTful API to go into the downstream applications and machine learning platform, as well as the visualization layer and dashboards. So it is very powerful, and we already enabled one green path with no code to connect your upstream and downstream tools. So who are we really designing for? So we're designing for data architects who are transitioning from TigerGraph and really just want this auto-generated graph schemas for very quick usage. And we're also designing for business analysts who just want to explore common graph analytics, but don't want to learn GSQL. And third, developers can also take advantage of these two tools when they're learning the TigerGraph and GSQL. And also, you can share and reuse the graph patterns that among different teams. And of course, for data scientists, graph pattern is very useful for the graph features for the machine learning models. Now let's get depth from the graph. We already talked about the benefits. It's super user-friendly and enables very speedy transition. And it's super intuitive. And we really see that it will accelerate your ETL process. And there's a flexibility and agility already built in for customizing the model. All right, let's look at this ETL workflow. So after, first, when you think about there's a relational data store, in this no-code RDBMS to graph, we leverage the JDBC driver for the relational databases and getting the metadata and data into the TigerGraph system. So the middle section is the in this ETL process, import the data files to the file system. We also use the metadata we retrieve from JDBC driver to help convert from relational schema to graph schema, and also generate the data mapping automatically. So the outcome for this ETL workflow is there's auto-generated graph schema and also the auto-populated data mapping and also loading ready data files. So after this process is done, you can just use the regular TigerGraph workflow. You can modify the schema, you can modify the data mapping, and also load even more data files. Continue to the next step of writing queries. For no-code RDBMS to graph, whenever you use this feature, a new local graph is added to the database after the migration. And this feature is restricted to super user and global designer role. And a few of the steps. Step 1, you can choose the relational data store to migrate the schema into the TigerGraph instance. And step 2, you can select the tables and attributes that you want to migrate. Step 3, you load the data. Step 4, you can customize and optimize your graph schema and data mapping in GraphStudio. Okay, let me get to the demo for this particular feature. First, let me stop sharing the slides. And I actually installed an instance in my local Docker machine. And I also need to enable that it's already connected with our data center, because I pre-installed, our developer pre-installed a relational data store in our data center. So currently, the 3.0 GraphStudio interface. And as you can see, I actually already have created a global view that only has one test vertex. And then there's also a subgraph, local graph that I created. But when I use this feature in GraphStudio, the no-code migration, I come to the GraphStudio console, the homepage, and then just click on migration from relational database and click on the relational database type that I want. I'm going to and click next. Input the data server information here, 5560, and the port information, the database name, the username, as well as the password. All right, let's see. Hopefully my internet connection is stable now. Okay, it seems that it's working. Let's see, this is the step 3, choosing tables attributes to be migrated. And of course, if you don't want to migrate some of those, you can just let me do next. And you can create an index and also choosing the graph name. Let me just say this is a demo. And also I will limit the number of records just to speed up this session. Let's say 10 and migrate. All right, it will take a few seconds converting the relational to graph schema. And let's see. And currently it is changing, actually importing the data from the relational database to the file system. As you can see, the table is being migrated and also publishing the data mapping. It's also automatically done, the data mapping between the relational TigerGraph. It'll take a few seconds. Right. So normally it's a lot faster than this since I'm using a local Docker machine. So it does limit the processing speed. Okay, graph schema, verify graph schema. And you can see, voila, the graph schemas are the north wind. You can see the edges and vertex are populated here automatically. And the data mapping on this stage is also done. And all the data CSV files are mapped into the edges and vertex. Next step, if I don't want to change any of the schema or data, I can just start loading here. Start loading. into the database. So this process is loading the data files in file system to TigerGraph database. It is in progress, and some are already finished. Some of the loading job is pending. So it will take say a few seconds, 10 to 20 seconds for finishing loading. Because of this Docker instance is not as powerful. However, before finishing loading, we can already explore some of the graph. Let's just pick explore graph, pick random 5 vertices. Voila, some of these data already here. And yes, so now we actually finish migration. And what I want to point out here is, okay, we have 2 subgraphs now. This is the local graph that I just migrated, MySQL Northwind demo. And then this is the other graph that I started with, which is the super user test graph that's allowed by super user. And there's actually a global vertex type here. And Duke will show more about multi-graph usage. All right, this part of the demo is done. Let me just go back to the presentation and get to the next part. So the next part, I'm going to talk about the Visual Query Builder in depth. So as we already talked about all the benefits, it's super intuitive for the beginner users to drag and drop and really analyzing the questions that you want to get from the TigerGraph instances. And it really, really decreases the learning curve. So we hope that this really brings to everyone, business analysts, data scientists, leadership. So let's look at some of the high-level concept. So what a visual graph pattern is really, we're using a declarative way of describing the template subgraph structure. And then all the subgraph structures that matches the graph pattern are the valid matching results. So this is kind of the underlying pinning concept that's behind the Visual Query Builder. And currently we have vertex patterns, edge patterns, and also such as field state, limit. And so one exception in this, the tool set you will find in Visual Query Builder is the widget tool. This is actually more represents a procedural workflow that joins the outputs and results either in union or intersection. So I will show you an example when I do the demo. All right, for simple steps to build graph patterns, step 1 is really think about analyze your English inquiry, your inquiry. Identify the entities and relationships in your question. And with that, you can get to step 3 and really pick the vertices and edges that represents the entities or relationships, and then merge them if needed in different cases. And step 4 is adding the conditional conditions if your questions ask for the conditional request. And step 5 is output and verify your results. Okay, now let's get to the Visual Query Builder demo. Oh, I actually have another instance up that I set up on Microsoft Azure that already preloaded a schema. It's a relatively simple schema here. You can see that it represents somewhat a corporate social network information. There's a person, there's the city that the person is born in, and also the school where this person attends, skill, department, company, industry. So it's a relatively simple schema. I also already loaded the data here pre this webinar. And let's just get to, so you can see that all finished. Now let's get to the graph patterns. This is the Visual Query Builder part. All right, the first pattern showing here is we're trying to find the CEO of company, which is in Redwood City. And also this company is a big data company. Let me just run this query here. All right, if you expand this, you can see that, and we can find that Jenny is a CEO of Graphlet, who is located at Redwood City and also belongs to big data. All right, let's go on to the second demo, which is a relatively even simpler demo here. This basically asks for, okay, who are the people in 2019 is younger than 30, right? So let's run the query. Okay, we output 4 people. Let's check 1991, 1990. So yes, these results are correct. And the next part, demo 2, this is a little bit more condition. This query basically asks for who are the people who are male that works in a department. And currently, as you can see, this is, I want to introduce this concept of output glow. And as you can see, department is actually having this orange glow, which means this is the output that you will see in the panel here. Let me just run this demo. You can see, okay, the Graphlet and Hooley Research are the department that has male employee, basically. And if we actually put this into the output here and work in as well. So all 3 are in output flow. And then let's save this. And you can actually see the 2 subgraph here is output here. And then you can see this Kevin works in Graphlet and Tom works in Hooley Research. So this is actually a good way to validate your results by clicking on and off different parts for your schema and the pattern. All right, let's go to, I believe, this, the widget part, as I promised earlier here. So this is a pattern that really leverages the widget. The thing here, the icon here is a widget that really joins the results from the P1, person P1 and person P2. And person P1 is actually the person which has skill set of research. And the person P2 here has the skill, who is born in San Jose. So when you join these 2 results, you can get the outcome here, that which is, the joining result set of these 2. Let's run the query again. Okay, let's first hide the previous one and then run query. All right. So here are the results for output for people who are either, has the research skill set or born in San Jose. If we want to validate that, let's do again. I'm going to deselect this and select this as output. And if I run it, I'll know that Tom and Jenny has. And then if I P1 and run it again, you can see that Kevin Emily has it. So I think we remember that earlier, that the union of the results is 4 people. All right, which is true. I ran it again. Okay, so this is very interesting. And I do want to remind everyone that here we every one of this graph pattern, we auto-generate the GSQL patterns. So you can actually patterns and also save it, and you will be able to find this query in the right query panels. Let's see. I already installed the CEO of Big Data here, but then this one, Visual 1, is the one we just did. And you can also, again, run the query interpret mode. Okay, again, these results are here. And yeah. Now, in the Graph Guru 35, I wasn't able to have time to do a demonstration. We just construct a very simple one, graph pattern that we saw earlier. Demo pattern. Add. Okay, so what's very convenient here is we actually have graph schema here for us to pick different things you want, different entities and relationships that your inquiry might include. Yeah, just to expand this again, here's the graph schema you can pick from, right? And let's decrease. And then let's use this pick tool. And here, voila, you can see that, okay, person and department is already picked. And now I can click on person and adding the filter that I want. So earlier we said that we want to find departments with male employees. Let me just getting the expression, the filter here. And we want to find the male employees, and gender is actually an attribute. So let's find the attribute and an expression. The other part is male, so which is a string. So let me just put here and put male and save this filter. Voila, the pattern is constructed. And you will see that, okay, I don't have any output glow here. Actually, the tool will output this error message. The pattern has one error. Click here to show. Okay, yeah, we actually included quite a bit of error message here. And click here and say, it reminds you you should output something in this pattern. So let me just click in results again and put, I actually want to put everything in again. 3 things selected, and let me run this pattern. And again, we see this same result we saw earlier. Kevin works in Graphlet, and Tom works at Hooli Research. Okay, this concludes my demo for Visual Query Builder. And let's go back to the slides. I'm going to talk next part. I'm going to talk about all the other improvements in GraphStudio, including the multi-graph support, secondary index, and GSQL interpret mode, internationalization and localization. So first, in terms of multi-graph. So multi-graph is actually a feature that we have included quite a while ago. It is an innovation that we're especially proud about. On one hand, it really enables the multiple graphs within one system. A user doesn't really have to purchase another systems simply because they want multiple graphs. On the other hand, it can also be used as an access control or security system. So for example, you can designate each of the subgraphs, local graphs, to one functional department or one level of permission within an organization. So there can be some data that everyone can access and some other data that only specific people can access. So it allows for the security and collaboration. And it's also real time because no data is not really affected, even though there are almost infinite ways that people can access this data. So as I mentioned, we've always had this feature in Engine GSQL level for more than 2 years. And prior to 3.0, you can always use the feature through command line. Now in 3.0, users can create and control global and local graphs through the GraphStudio interface. You can also design and leverage the MultiGraph from beginning to end in the GraphStudio SDK. So this is a very exciting new enhancement to GraphStudio. You can see that the top left corner of GraphStudio indicates that whether you're in a global view or you're at a local graph. And very simple steps to use MultiGraph in GraphStudio. Step 1, you create the global vertices and edges in global view. And step 2, you can create a local graph. And step 3, you assign the global vertices and edges that you want from the global graph schema to the local graph schema. Later, Duke will show the MultiGraph. I'm going to continue on talking about interpret mode very quickly. So this is another GraphStudio support features which were in the product since 2.4, TigerGraph 2.4. And we now expose this feature through the GraphStudio 3.0. And it really makes it faster for multiple users to work on the same TigerGraph instance and also writing the queries, and also making it faster to try different query. You don't really need to install the GSQL queries every time before running it. So now in GraphStudio, we run the queries in interpret mode by default, unless you choose to install. Of course, there is a caution that interpret mode is for query writing and then experimentation. And if you are in a production system that needs the speed, we encourage you to install the queries. And you can do that in GraphStudio as well. Again, here, you can see that, run query in interpret mode. I think earlier when I was doing my Visual Query Builder, you already see those messages. All right, this part is for internationalization and localization. We add internationalization framework to the UI in 3.0. And also added Chinese as the first localization language. Of course, we welcome your feedback if you want more language support for the UI platform. And here, GraphStudio 3.0 also supports secondary index. And this is in sync with the TigerGraph 3.0 engine feature. So this time the engine and GraphStudio is in sync. And this is actually really easy to enable from GraphStudio. And you only need to check the index for the particular attributes you want to use. And it is complex in the back end. However, in GraphStudio, you can just hide this design complexity via one click. Now, I'm going to hand over to Duke to go through the demo for these features. And Duke will also talk about the admin portal features and do a demo for that. I'm going to stop share, and Duke, you can take over.
Thank you, Emma. You share my screen. All right. So first, I want to show you the global view of GraphStudio here. So for today's demo, I used the social graph starter kit as an example. You can find out more details about this starter kit from a cloud instance. So very simple. We have this graph from person. We have train ride, bank account, flight, bus ride, address, and phone. So now we're going to create a local graph. So you can see here the global view we have on this, and we also have connectivity as a local graph. So this local graph simply includes all of the vertices and edges from the global graph. And these are marked as the globe icons. Now we're going to create a local graph from the global view. Simply click on create a graph. Gonna give it a name like employment. And here we're gonna choose the vertices and edges we want to include it in our local graph. Here we choose person and create. Right, so here you can see here we are in the employment local graph. And you can add local vertices and edges within this graph. You click here and then create a vertex named company. Add some attribute, industry. And address. And as you can see on the right side here, we can select this attribute as a secondary index to speed up the query. So here I'm going to pick industry as secondary index and add. You also add a local edge from person to company called works at directed edge, and add a start date as an attribute. And done. So what we have to do now is to publish this schema. It's gonna take roughly around 10 to 15 seconds to finish creating a local schema. All right, and that's done. And you can add more subgraph here as you like. So next, I want to drop back into the connectivity graph and gonna demo the interpreted mode for our query. So when you go to query page, here we have three queries. So you can see this one is only installed, and this one is not installed. It's only saved as a draft. So normally you can just run this query when it's installed. For example, query like this. You can also run the query when it's not installed. For example, this one. You can see here, run query in interpreted mode. And put this ID and run. You can also see the warning here that it might be slower than the install query. So when you satisfy with the query you write, you can install a query, and then you can use it either from GraphStudio, or you can use it as an endpoint through our recipe right here. And the last feature I want to show is internationalization. You can change a language on the fly by clicking on this account button. And here you can see the language. You can simply switch back and forth between the two languages. All right, that's all for the new features for GraphStudio. Now I'm gonna talk about the features for Admin Portal. All right, so in 3.0, we introduced the user management into Admin Portal, and also we want to enhance the license management feature. For Admin Portal, there's 3 sections. You can see here you have My Profile, which you can manage yourself, and you can manage another user, and also do assign and revoke role management. In the first section, My Profile, you can change your own password. You can manage your secrets for a graph. For user management, you can create or delete a user or proxy group. You can change a user passwords, or you can change a proxy group's role. For role management, you can assign a user or proxy group to your graph, or you can revoke them from a graph. For license management, we enhance the display of license. Now it's so more detail. You can see first is the overview, license to whom, the issue time and expiry time, whether it's valid or not, and the type of license, whether it's for enterprise or developer, whether MultiGraph is enabled, whether it's for single node or for cluster, and whether GraphStudio is enabled. And further up below, you can see more details about the topology size, the machine limitation, and some runtime configuration. So next, I'm gonna demo these features. Admin here, and then go to user management. So here you can see a quick overview of those user. The name is TigerGraph. You have access to TigerGraph, and here you can change the password if you want to. Down here is a table displaying the secret per graph. So I can add a secret. I can add an alias called secret1. And you can copy this secret to be used in your query. And be mindful that this secret only display one time. So the next time you refresh the page, the secret will be gone. You cannot see it anymore. And next one is for user management. From here, you can create a new user or proxy group. As user here, check, create a password, and then add. You can also add a proxy group. And attribute group equals to IT, and then add. Right. So now you have a user and proxy group. You can do some role management with these choose users. Go to here. So within this section, you can see, first you can see like a graph here, either connectivity or employment. On the left side, you can select assigning, revoking for a user or for a proxy group. So first, let's do with user. So we provide two modes of operation. One, you can do drag and drop, and this is assign, or you can do right click to the assignment, and you can also revoke. We also color coded the user according to how many rows the user has. So you can see here they have admin and query writer. So you can see that's two colors representing that this user has two rows within this graph. You can do the same thing for the proxy group. Yeah, as simple as that. Okay, so that's finished my demo for the new admin portal features. Now I'm gonna pass it back to Emma.
Thank you, Duke. All right, let me share my screen again. Okay, just want to do a quick summary of what we went through. So first, why TigerGraph 3.0, right? So all the features user-defined indexing, easier, faster deployment through distributed environment for large data. And these you can find in the Graph Guru 35. You can find more details there. And today we really looked at the ease of use features, for example, the no-code visual query builder, and also the web-based admin portal, migration from relational database to graph, and also Duke demoed a bunch of new features in GraphStudio features that's really going to help all the developers and DBAs and also more business analysts and data scientists to use TigerGraph and use Graph. And we're really excited that all these new improvements will bring even bigger impact to your data management tasks. So I just want to end the presentation today with a quote from a distinguished engineer at the Fortune 10 healthcare company. And this quote really, motivates our team to move forward with our product innovation and bringing the graph analytics to everyone. So we hope that with this new powerful data management and analytics tool, TigerGraph 3.0, we can bring even greater impact to the world, especially during this turbulent times. So let us know how we can simplify your graph analytics journey even more. with that, let's get to the Q&A section. All right. I did see there were quite a few questions, so I marked as I'll answer live. There were two that's regarding the building the visual query builder. I did show during my demo how to build one. And there was the other one that's showing the GSQL query that's accompanied to the graph pattern. I also demoed that there is a button on the toolbar that you can get to the GSQL query right away. And there's another question that, let me just, I actually don't see the question, but I noted down.
So,
that,
Emma, there are some questions in chat as well as in the Q&A, so you might want to look at both of them.
Let me just get to the Q&A part. There is, do we need to import the whole relational DB to the GraphDB before query? And can it work in place? So basically, you don't need to import the whole relational database. As I demoed earlier, you can actually select the different parts that you want to import into TigerGraph, and you can also select to just import the top 100 lines or 10 lines for each table. So, however, in terms of querying, yes, you do need to let the data into TigerGraph so that we can query the information there. Hope that answers the question. And the other question is SQL to TigerGraph import guaranteed to be lossless? So what I showed earlier is underneath this architecture, we leverage our CSV file loading. So in terms of the file loading part, it's pretty much the same as the file loading from local CSV upload. So that's actually guaranteed similarly to our regular data loading. However, if there's a connection issue between the database, relational database to TigerGraph, there could be a data disconnect there. And in that case, since this is the alpha version, we encourage you to reload. All right, I think there's also in chat one question here. I believe there's one question for Duke. This question is, there is an edge label include destination node label. Person has flight and to flight. Why is that? Duke, do you have the answer for that?
Is this one in which demo?
I think the demo around 11:45. I believe this is just the person has flight and flight. Person and flight is the entities, and has flight is the edge type. So we'll have to go back to the particular information on the destination. I'll get back to you when we actually get to the exact demo. Okay. Can the queries run on a distributed cluster or a single machine? The queries can run on distributed cluster, yes. Can we restrict access to the subset of vertices in a graph? So this is a vertex level access control, which we're really actively working on. So stay tuned for the next major update. We will include some update around that type of access control. However, currently you can try to put into the different vertices into different local graphs so that you can restrict access control in that particular way. Can Excel files be imported? So Excel files, you can be exported as CSV files, and you can import CSV files. So the answer is yes. All right. I think that actually gets to the end of the question. All right, let me go back to this slide.
There's one more actually in Q&A.
Let's see.
11:55 a.m.
Okay. Let me see. Sorry.
Do you want? I can just read it. How is Graph partitioned for distributed querying?
So, well, well, we actually have, this is actually a more, I would say I'll get back to you on that question, and then with some more details on how the graph is partitioned for distributed querying, if that works for you. All right, let me present. Okay, for the more questions, you can get to their board resources here that you can start free at TigerGraph Cloud. And currently we are still at the previous version, TigerGraph 2.6. And we are going to upgrade to 3.0 very soon after 3.0 is available in July. And you can, of course, join our developer forum and also developer chat. And also sign up for developer office hours at Thursday, 11 a.m. And there's just some upcoming webinars here. And there are the webinar Graph Guru 40, which is the GSQL writing best practices for part 5. And the next one is the webinar, the power of graph analytics for performing entity resolution. And we've seen this entity resolution use case quite often among our customers. So definitely take a look at these webinars. With that, thank you for everyone's participation and looking forward to everyone in the next webinar. Thank you. Bye.